The opinions expressed on the Custody Queen Show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for personal, professional legal advice. The persons discussed are fictional and not based on actual clients.
Thought it was love, had kids in between. You can count on us, we're the Custody Queens. Yeah, you can count on us, we're the Custody Queens.
Good morning. I am here with my favorite blonde, Sam. Hey.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Hey. All right. We have a great show for you guys today. We are the Custody Queens, and you know that because you're listening. And we're here every Saturday morning for your listening pleasure. But today we have a very important topic, and it's domestic violence. And it's such a heavy topic that a lot of people try dodging and avoiding, but it is a really, really important one. And we hope to bring some light and not make it such a taboo topic. And we have an amazing guest today. Her name is Audrey Hope. She is an award-winning trauma therapist, certified addiction therapist, relationship expert, and spiritual healer. We will be discussing domestic violence with Audrey.
Yeah, we are so excited to have Audrey here today. I did my, typical Instagram social media stalk. And I was just so impressed at what I saw. Audrey's been in the industry for over 2 decades and really knows her stuff. And we are so happy to have you here today.
I am so happy to be here because the world really needs healing inside and out. So
it does.
It's an honor to be here. You guys are doing great work.
Well, thank you. So before we get into the kind of topic that Kristen was speaking on earlier, we want to kind of keep it light and get to know everyone. So we're going to use our handy dandy CQ book. Kristen's going to pull a question for Audrey and we're going to get going. These are random questions.
And you guys are listening, so unless you're watching us on CQ on air and you're watching our past episodes, you're not seeing this beautiful pink magenta book that is littered with questions for us. So I just wanted to let you guys know exactly what I was holding in my hand. And I just randomly go to a page and bam, there's a question. So Audrey, I am just going to open it up. Okay. And I'm going to have Sam point to a number. All right, this is question 820. Audrey, what is the most philanthropic person you know, and who do they give to?
Recently, Amazon's wife, she has taken his money and she has used it to help COVID relief. And I was really impressed by that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're doing something.
Absolutely. He has
money.
made so much money this year.
He has. And they actually got divorced a few years back, and it was probably up there in one of the wealthiest divorces in the country.
Yes.
So I'm glad to hear that they're actually taking some of that money and using it for such a good purpose.
We have to give back.
We do. I am a firm believer of that, and I think that that's been handed down to me from my parents. And my dad is actually the managing partner of the firm that Custody Queens is under, which is Holstrom Block and Park, and we probably donate somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 a year to different various charities.
That's wonderful. I know you do that on Brothers-in-Law too.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with that the last time I was on the show.
Yeah, Rob and Larry are really good like that too. And I think, just like you said, it's important to give back. Everybody in a successful and blessed position in life should always give back, even if it's just buying the car in front of you, Starbucks. Make someone's day.
Absolutely.
All right, Kristen, your turn.
All right, so I'm going to ask you, right?
Yeah, you can ask me.
Okay, let's get on to you. Let me find a good one here.
Oh, here we go.
All right, this is a good one for Sam. If a waiter spilled a drink on you, but it was an accident, would you still tip?
Yes, unequivocally. I don't know if anyone knows this about me, but I'm probably too nice at restaurants, but especially if it was an accident. And by the way, I am the person that would get spilled on, for sure. Out of the group of people, I'm that one.
Yeah, I think I would actually tip double because everyone who knows me, and if you just watch our social media feeds, I actually spilled this morning, to be honest, while I was getting my hair and makeup done.
Yeah, you would really identify with that.
Yeah, and then I went to change, into an outfit for a photo shoot today as well, and I spilled, Diet Coke all over my brand new jacket. So that's just me. So I think that.
And
I
we
would
all
tip
have
double.
bad days, and being in that moment where you do something and it's just embarrassing, or you're having a bad day, when people around that person help feed into that, it puts you into a tailspin. So I think it's a really good opportunity to actually, be kind.
Yeah, and I've been that waiter. In law school, I was a server. Actually, in college, too, I worked part-time as a server. And I was carrying a tray, holding it with the one hand. I had been doing it about a year, was getting pretty good at it. And I had about 15 drinks on this tray. And I tripped probably over my own 2 feet.
Oh, no.
And bottles of beer went flying, drinks went everywhere, and it just spilled all over a whole table. And it's another scar on my back that has allowed me to continue on this journey. But it reminds you to be patient, be kind, and you know what? Accidents happen.
Absolutely. All right, Kristen, I'm going to pick one for you. What is your favorite precious stone?
I don't know that I have a favorite. Is this like the zodiac signs or the birthstones?
You can take this question where you feel it needs to go.
What is every girl's precious stone? Diamonds! Holla!
What's that saying? Diamonds are a girl's best friend?
Yes, they are. And diamonds do make everything better. I'll find pictures of wedding rings, that I just subtly send to my husband. We're at the 12 year, so I think I got to wait till like 15 to really, upgrade. But I'll just subtly send text messages or, have the screenshot sent to his phone. But as I've gotten older, I have come to appreciate jewelry a lot more.
Yeah.
And I've actually come to take care of it. And I really do believe that diamonds can make you feel better. It may be a short-term feeling, but they can. What do you think, Audrey?
But they actually are the highest stone. So, yes, I know a lot about crystals. I work with crystals. And a diamond is the highest frequency.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so wearing it is really good for you.
So it is really good, not just in my head good.
Absolutely good for you.
You gotta tell that to Jeremy, huh?
Oh my gosh, that might solve so many problems in my life if I just had a bigger diamond.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so now I think it's time for us to get into our segment, Divorce Wars. This is where Kristen and I listen to a fictional story about very real life issues that happen in family law, and we kind of go back and forth and comment on what we hear.
Yeah, it's kind of like a soap opera of, divorce wars and crazy divorce tales, and we assess different parts of the story. So hang tight and listen with us.
This is Divorce Wars. I'm a woman who ran a battered women's shelter. I used to attend court to give moral and practical support to some of the victims. There's a lot of waiting around in family court, and so I had a chance to share my own story quite a bit. My husband had been a nightmare. I did always say, though, that I often gave as good as I got. One day, after I'd had another drunken payday beating, I waited until he was unconscious on the sofa and stole all the money so I could leave him. Before I left, I stripped the mattress sheet off our bed. I took a full-length mirror, laid it down his side of the bed, and replaced the sheet. Then I took a hammer, smashed the mirror into pieces, and straightened the sheets again so it wouldn't be visible to my pissed-drunk husband when he finally fell onto what was now a bed of broken glass covered by a thin cotton sheet. Then I left and never looked back.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa is right.
You stole the words out of me, Audrey.
That is rage, capital A, that is rage.
Right.
And that is, really showing that she's done. She's done.
Yeah, and I was totally on her side at the beginning. I think that giving advice and education and providing tools to other victims of domestic violence is amazing, but I don't know if she should be providing that education and that therapy, because clearly she hasn't dealt with her own internal rage, and she she clearly needs some continuing help herself. But Audrey, what do you find with what the wife did in that case?
What I'm hearing is that the feelings, and I work a lot with women, and they have a lot of rage, and they hide it in their bodies, so it comes out that way. That must have been years of holding in what she was feeling. And so one of the things that has to happen with women is they have to express themselves daily and not hold it in so it becomes an atomic bomb. So what I'm really getting is the compassion here for what she was going through all those years. I know you make a good point, but maybe she can share compassion with these other women instead of giving the advice, like sit with them and really be with them, because that is a lot of pain that she's had.
I agree. I mean, that is definitely, like you said, years and years and years of pain. And I think if she actually got the help that she needs, because clearly she does need some help herself, and having someone abuse you like that for years and years and years will do it. It takes a piece of your soul every single day. And I really hope that she gets the help she needs. But at the end of the day, violence should never be met with more violence.
No.
Right. You don't want to, sort of say fight fire with fire. And what I will say is, I think everyone, that's listening to this story can hear a level of compassion, and then at some point in the story we hear a switch. And I would say that not even just looking at what she did because of her inner emotions, those things they turn everyone off to the real issue, which is what she can do to help, and kind of sharing her story in a really productive way. When we kind of see people not get the help that they need kind of day in and day out, we see reactions like that, and those can have really bad consequences in family law, because in family law, what we're describing in this story is her taking actions which would very, very likely, if not absolutely, result in some sort of restraining order against her. And we don't want to see that as someone that is, especially initially, the victim of domestic violence. We want to see, daily healing and also sharing compassion. And that's kind of the point of this episode, is to educate in maybe other ways so that people understand that domestic violence is a very broad range of things, and it's systematic, and it doesn't normally happen in an isolated event. It normally happens over a period of time, and people feel very built up resentment, and at some point, if they don't have the services that they need, or they're not getting the healing that they need, we see them snap. And that is so unfortunate to see.
Yeah, and what also happens in court in that situation is the woman in that situation, she loses credibility. Mm-hmm. And so when she acted out and started transitioning from the victim of the domestic violence to the perpetrator as well, because that's what was happening at that point, you lose so much credibility with the court, with any therapist, with any child custody evaluator that may be working on the case. And she was in a good position before, and there's got to be better ways to express rage and to work through your problems, right, Audrey?
Yes. An important point about trauma, grief, and abuse is that there really is a physical component to it. There has to be a healthy release of the rage. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had talked about, the externalization process, which you really have to hit something. This you have to do in a safe environment. You got to get it out of your body. We did that through telephone books and pipes that were, and we kept hitting it until the rage came out of the body, which is really good, because you can't just do talk therapy on something like this. Your body is alive with all this, so she needs to have that kind of scream on a mountain, hit the pillow, get it out, because it's, like I said, years of that. It can be very dangerous and can do crazy things,
right.
So
I think that's something that Sam and I deal with a lot in our careers, and it's been more prevalent, I would say, in the last year because of the pandemic and isolation and being home, and sometimes being stuck home with an aggressor. It's important that if you feel like you are the victim of domestic violence, it's important that you identify that you are, and then that's going on. Sam, how does someone identify themselves as a victim of domestic violence?
Well, I mean, I think it's very hard to self-reflect what's going on when it's happening to you. And so a lot of times we need support systems to help identify what's going on, or a pattern of conduct. But when it comes to abuse, and it's not just as defined under the family code, but abuse in general is it's a broad spectrum of behaviors. It's often a pattern of behavior, and the first step is understanding what it is. And we all, associate domestic violence with physical contact, and that obviously is domestic violence, but there's another huge kind of unseen, silent area that we'd like to bring attention to. It's the long-term emotional abuse. It's the harassment, the stalking, the telephoning incessantly, the control of where you're going.
Financial control.
Financial control. It's day in, it's day out, impersonating someone, threatening to disseminate private text messages to an employer.
Pictures.
There's a huge range of conduct that is defined as domestic violence, and from a family law perspective, we need therapists, and we need people to help treat and heal. We can help protect from the point of view of getting a restraining order, but it's kind of a holistic approach. We need a little of everything to protect someone, but a lot of times you see people not understanding that they're in abusive situations until long after. They don't understand how toxic they are because it's their day to day. I think a lot of people wouldn't be in situations if this was just one isolated event. It's a pattern of conduct over time.
I think you bring up an amazing point. Both of you, fantastic, because the first part of healing is to have, let's say, the woman understand that she's been abused.
Yeah, I had a conversation the other day with an acquaintance, and this is a perfect example of exactly what this is. The person I was having the conversation with, they had made a statement like, we have agreed that the abuse will not be in front of the kids. I have made arrangements in the event of an emergency and have made travel plans. And I have these conversations with colleagues. I have these conversations with clients and potential clients, friends. I have conversations with a lot of these people, and you would be shocked. Sometimes I actually have to reach out to an expert to help guide me through the conversations, because sometimes I can't understand the pain that this person is going through. And I can file the motions, and I can file the judicial counsel forms, and I can come at it from the attorney's perspective. But it's taken me a long time in my career to really understand that so many of these victims, they defend the aggressor. And they believe that they deserve it.
Exactly. That's it in a nutshell. With women, they need to know they don't deserve it. And they defend, and they'll say, well, he's so good to me, he just hits me on Friday nights.
Right.
You see? So it's the 90% and then the 10%.
Right.
You see?
And I actually saw, Audrey, on your website, back to me, kind of just checking you out. I saw that you have a quote on there, and it really spoke to me. And you quoted Einstein, and the quote is, "We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them."
Yes, I started with that years ago. That really hit me. Yes, you cannot go, you have to go beyond that level. And that's why I have taken this abuse level to self-esteem of women, and then also the society. And that domestic abuse happens more in places where there isn't gender equality. So it's a really big issue on how men treat women and the society. So I've done a show on that, on the patriarch versus the matriarch.
Well, and let me add something to that right there. I can tell you in the last year that I have had 20 plus cases where the woman has been the aggressor. Mm-hmm. I deal with it regardless of gender. I mean, I think it's just the personality trait of the person.
Well, it goes unreported in men. It's a big problem.
Yeah.
Men in general will hide more of that. But the Me Too movement, there was a lot of backlash about men who's from it for that very reason. But I take a point of view in that I just think it's more prevalent among women.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the facts as I get them, and I think in your career you definitely probably deal with more women coming forward.
Yes, and the self-esteem issue of women is the root of it, and the men not speaking up. Men have no healing for this too. They don't have any place to heal their emotions, and that's a big problem in our society. I hope it changes.
I hope so too. And if there's one thing that Sam and I want to do today with the listeners is we want to not only bring light of domestic violence and abuse, but also make it more common to talk about with your friend, talk about with a therapist. Oftentimes when Sam and I have a very high conflict case that may involve domestic violence, it may be everything from financial control and suppression all the way up to physical abuse. My number one question to that person is, do you have a therapist? Have you sought treatment? And if not, please do. Because we can take care of you legally, but there is so much healing that needs to be done outside of us as attorneys that are essential to the progression of your case.
And if you isolate yourself, you will be isolated, right? You won't have anyone to reach out to. You can cut off your own support system and not listen to people that are trying to help you. But I would just encourage everyone to keep an open ear. It is so much more prevalent than anyone wants to talk about. It is out there. You aren't the one in a million. It happens more than you would think. Kristen and I know that reality all too well in what we do for a living. And it's just important to make sure that you are trying to not only heal, but understand that if you are going through it, you could be very helpful to somebody else's story and you can build on each other, and it's not something to be embarrassed of. That's, again, why Kristen and I wanted to do this episode so much, because we often just push it under the rug in society. No one wants to talk about it. You were just being emotional. That's not really true.
One too many drinks that night. It's because of COVID.
You're exaggerating, etc. And then you start to almost trick your own memory and you don't really even know what the past was anymore. So it's important to make sure that you're contacting people. You can contact us, absolutely, and we can help you identify, the signals and the things that we see. But share your stories if you can. It's such a bold thing, and I know that a lot of people have very private stories, but if you can do that, or you can at least point someone in our direction or the direction of someone that can help them heal, that would be a really positive first step.
Yeah, I agree, Sam. And on the flip side of that, domestic violence has such a huge consequence in a family law case. And I don't want to go too much into detail on this because we could have a whole nother show on it. But if you are someone that may be the aggressor in the relationship and you have controlling tendencies, or you are someone that is reactionary, and we are all guilty of it, every one of us. Most people listening are reactionary at times. But I encourage you to take that and make that phone call to talk to a specialist or a therapist or someone that can help you, because what we want is everyone to have a healthy marriage or a healthy relationship. And when that doesn't happen, we can still move forward with the divorce and the separation with two healthy human beings, because guess what? You guys are likely parents. And the ones that get the most brunt and the most damage from domestic violence are the children.
And that is one thing that is actually recognized in our family statutes and laws is that if you are a perpetrator of domestic violence and the court finds that you are, then there is a presumption that it's detrimental for a period of time for you to have custody of your children. Now, presumptions may be overcome, but it's something to consider, and that statute is in place for a reason, because we're recognizing the very serious effect even witnessing abuse can have on children today that are our future.
Intergenerational, ancestral lines that just travel. It just gets learned and passed on. So in healing, you have to cut the cords to that. It's very important that it's not passed on.
Right.
Big part of healing.
And what would someone who's starting the healing process, what would be the initial steps you would take? What would be the advice?
I think what you two have said here today is so extraordinary. Thank you so much. I'm just, I'm so passionate about women and healing, so I love what you said. Very, very good practical advice. I would say that the thing is, you have to get truthful and honest. You can't bury things under the rug. That's rule number one. And that takes courage. So you need courage to change your life, and you have to get honest. So that's number one. Number two is you have to be safe. Safety is always first. Even I work in an addiction. You have to be safe.
Right.
And we hear a lot in our line of work is that it's important for for the victim to have a safety plan.
A safety
Is that
plan,
something
yes.
you discuss
Yes.
with your clients?
Yes, you have to be, it really needs to be planned out. Because if they're coming out of a very dangerous situation at home, it's real. It's really real. So yes, you make the safety plan and you put it in place, and then you can go to a shelter, you plan out where you'll go if you need help, financial, and then the therapy begins, which is a lot of realization that you have been abused.
Accountability. Self-reflection.
Yes, self-reflection.
Yeah. Sorry, go
So,
ahead.
Audrey, what's the most difficult part of working with someone who's experienced domestic violence?
As you said, getting them to stop defending the person. There's a lot of shame with it, and there's a thing of it's your fault. You feel it's your fault. Well, that's because I didn't cook him dinner on Friday nights, and so there has to be an acknowledgement that it's not you, it's them. And that process, as simple as that sounds, is difficult.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's very hard.
very difficult.
It's the self-reflection process, and I think that I may be wrong about this, but I think part of it, admitting it, is then admitting to yourself that this situation was allowed to go on for a period of time until you were strong enough to leave, or had enough education and resources to leave, because some people are truly stuck. But I mean, really, I see that as a shift then towards a positive light.
Yes, because if people are I always say on your knees, you begin to look up, Even addiction is sort of an opening to a new life. Mm-hmm. It's terrible to have to go through this. But it is at the point of despair where you can really change.
Right.
It has sometimes to get that bad.
And it has to get better before it gets worse,
That's
right? You
right.
have to go through the pain, you have to go through the emotions, and then, you look up.
Yes, and change your point of view on it. Change your perspective. If you change your perspective, there's healing in that too. That this is a chance for a new life. And that's why spirituality is very, very important in this kind of healing.
I agree.
Because you're
I
changing your
couldn't agree more.
mindset. Yes. It's really successful
And
in
it's
this kind of
undoing learned behavior of years.
Yes. And also tracking it. Where does it come from? How come you lost yourself? And it's really good to track it. It always is around 5 or 6. 5, 6, 7-year-old, there's something that happens where you divide against yourself and you kind of lose yourself. And I call it a soul retrieval. You got to give back that place where you lost yourself.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I call it a soul retrieval. And I have tracked it in everyone. I mean, just 5, 6, 7, 8. Even criticism, it's deadly. If you give a kid criticism, you've taken them out.
I agree.
So there's always, if you look back into the...
I agree, and I say that because if I think about my childhood, which was wonderful, but the moments of critique are the moments that I remember.
And then I say, it's not what they did to us, because that you can heal in therapy. But the real soul point is what you do to yourself because of it, you see? So then you become critical of yourself. And then you doubt yourself, and that, in my opinion, is dangerous.
I agree.
And I think if you take someone that's like a type A personality, which is a lot of professionals, I can tell you I do it personally. Sam, would you say you do it personally, that we critique ourselves all day?
Right, and it's interesting. That's why Audrey brought up such a great point. Where did it come from?
Yeah, and it is true. Like Sam said, you always, as an employer, I always try to praise in public, and then critique or to go over a situation in private. And as I've grown in my career as a manager, I always try to do my best to focus so much more on the good, because that's what makes people want to be better. And that's also what's going to have that woman or man want to get the help to be a better parent and to be a better version of themselves.
Yes.
And we have so much resource on our website, everybody listening. We actually did a webinar probably middle of last year that's actually posted under webinars on custodyqueens.com. And we have some experts similar to Audrey here today that can help provide some feedback and some resources. And we also have a list of resources. If you can't afford an attorney, we do have a list of available opportunities for you to get some help. And if you are listening and you are a victim, or you know someone that's a victim and needs help, please give them our information. Sam and I deal with this issue unfortunately too much, and I do believe that it has increased significantly over the last year due to the pandemic and people staying at home. But please ask a friend, reach out, make a call.
Yeah, and Audrey, just listening to you're just amazing, and thank you so much for being on our show. I can't thank you enough. But how do our listeners get a hold of you?
AudreyHope.com.
Okay, great. That's how I got a hold of her. If anyone's wondering.
And they could even have, I give sessions too. They can take care of that on the website.
And are you doing those Zoom or face-to-face?
I'm doing Zoom, and I work at Seasons Rehab.
Okay.
So I'm at work. We are wearing masks and being vaccinated and taking the precautions.
That's wonderful work that you're doing, and we need so much more of that and more education in our legal community to make sure that we're not just handling the legal aspect, we're also handling the other emotional healing aspect, which I think gets forgotten too much.
Yeah, and it's so important to the success of not only your case and moving forward with your life, but just your overall well-being.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I think that's all the time we have for today. I think Kristen and I, and probably Audrey too, could go on for hours. But it was so nice to have you again, Audrey. Thank you so much. If you want to get a hold of Kristen or I on social media, my Instagram is at Samantha McBride. Kristen's is at Custody Queen Kristen. You can also check out custodyqueensonair.com if you want to see any past episodes. And if you want information, like Kristen said, we have a lot of resources. You can go to custodyqueens.com as well.
Yeah, and take the next step, and thank you all for going through this journey with us today. It has been something that we have been going back and forth on how do we present this issue, how do we talk about it on Saturday morning and not make it such a dark issue. And I think that it went really well today, and I think that we brought some light and some information and education onto something that is so near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and there's hope for healing. You know, we want to bring the education so that you guys can heal. And if anyone has questions or anything like that, please feel free to give us a call, 1-800-419-7772. That's 1-800-419-7772.
And you can reach Audrey Hope again at audreyhope.com.
And remember, let love rule.
Yeah.